Everybody here understands that what American history has been about is the understanding that real change never takes place from the top on down, always from the bottom on up. That is the history of America. Think back, 100+ years ago. Workers in this country forced to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, children working in factories. People could be fired arbitrarily. They had no rights on the job. And workers stood up and they said, we are not beasts of burden, we're not animals, we are human beings. We want dignity. We're going to form trade unions and negotiate contracts. Think back several hundred years ago, within the abomination of slavery, African Americans and their allies said, we will struggle for as long as it takes to end racism and segregation and bigotry in the United States of America. And millions of people stood up to fight for an America not based on racism. Think about 100 years ago, not a long time from an historical perspective. 100 years ago today, women did not have the right to vote, could not get the education they wanted, could not do the work they wanted. But women stood up. They stood up and they said, the status quo ain't good enough. It's unacceptable. And women and their male allies said that in America, women will not be second-class citizens. And on it goes. That's how change takes place. Think about this. If we were in this room 10 years ago, which is no time at all from an historical perspective, 10 years ago, and somebody here jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, I think that gay marriage will be made legal in this country in 50 states by the year 2015. Do you know what the person next door would have said? Would have said, you're crazy. You're thinking too big. It can't happen. But what happened is the gay community and their straight allies, they stood up and they made the claim that became impossible to argue against, and that is that people have a right to love each other regardless of their gender. Change takes place, always takes place, when people stand up and reject the status quo and come together. Give you one more example. 5 years ago, if we were in this room 5 years ago and somebody jumps up and says, Bernie, you know, this $7.25 an hour minimum wage, it's an outrage. People can't live on it. We got to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. Person next to him would have said, $15 an hour? You want to more than double the minimum wage? You're nuts. You're thinking too big. You're too radical. Maybe $8, maybe $10. You can't go to $15 an hour. But you know what happened? Workers in the fast food industry, in McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's, they went out on strike. And they said to the American people, we can't make it on $7.25 an hour. And then you know what happened? A couple of years ago in Seattle, Washington, they passed a $15 an hour minimum wage. And then in Los Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oregon, California, New York State. Here is my point. The major crisis we face are not the crises themselves. It is the belief told us every single day by the establishment, by the media, by Congress, you can't make change. This is the status quo, this is the way it is, and this is the way it always will be. Doesn't matter what you believe. And that is what this campaign is challenging.